Yeah guys, what's going on? Welcome back, it's Jockey Landers here. It's episode number 11 in the Leeds United career mode on the back of our win over Arsenal in the last episode by 3-0. Back to winning ways after what's been a really good start to the season. Yes, little slip-ups here and there, but now travelling to Kenilworth Road for the following game. Luton Town away. Mate, everyone's buzzing for Luton back in the Premier League for the first time in the club's history next season. Honestly, I can't wait as well. You know, it's a great story. You know, them rising through the leagues in such a short space of time. You know, and obviously the big story is obviously Pelly, Ruddock and Panzu, who's been there from non-league. He's been part of their journey from non-league to Premier League. The first player in history to do that. Such a great story. And you know what, like if I'm a Luton fan, everyone's sitting there, and it seems like almost every single year a team goes up and 90% of football fans and pundits say, yeah, they're certs to go down. I'm sure Luton will be that team next year. You know, Burnley under company, their fantastic dominant season, the Championship, people might think they have enough to stay up. Sheffield United again, people might think they've got enough to stay up again. But Luton going via the playoffs, I think a lot of people would say they would be considered the weakest team in the league next season based on ability alone. But you know what? The amount of times those teams prove people wrong. Can I take you back to 2017 when Huddersfield Town got promoted to the Premier League and everyone said they'd be the first team to go down and they survived? Can I take you back to last season when Bournemouth were back in the big time and everyone said they'd go down and they didn't? And I want to hold my hands up and say I was one of those people. I said there is no way Bournemouth survive, and after their abysmal start to the season, Parker getting the sack so early on, that record equaling 9-0 drubbing away at Anfield, everyone was saying there's no way they stay up, and Gary O'Neill pulled off a mad one to keep them in the Premier League. That is what I think Luton Town need to look at and say, do you know what? Yes, we'll be the team that everyone expects to be the whipping boys next season to go down. Bournemouth didn't. Huddersfield didn't. There'll be other teams out there as well that are great. You remember Sheffield United a few years ago, their first season in the Premier League? They had an amazing start to the campaign and ended up surviving comfortably. I mean, you know, why not Luton as well? You know, why not Luton as well? It's something about being the underdog, do you know what I mean? That I feel like for certain teams, it plays to their strengths, do you know what I mean? Being the underdog, being the one that no one expects. There are certain teams that like that, you know, that live up to that kind of underdog, you can't tell us kind of mentality, everyone's against us kind of mentality. I think that's what Bournemouth kind of had last year, that kind of like siege mentality, you know, after Gary O'Neill came in and said, do you know what your old manager said about you? You're not good enough for the Premier League. Yeah, let's go prove him wrong. I think that kind of siege mentality to certain clubs and for certain players, it really helps, you know. That's how Gary O'Neill, in my opinion, managed to help Bournemouth stay up. You know, they invested really well in January as well, should be said. But even so, speaking of Gary O'Neill, I can't believe it. Like, you know, literally, I woke up yesterday morning and of all the news stories to see, that's what I was not expecting. I couldn't believe it. And I mean, you gotta say, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because here's the thing, right? Here's the thing on this, right? With Gary O'Neill getting this out. Listen, I'll be honest, he was my manager of the year. He alongside Roberto De Zerbi was my manager of the year, and I would have given it to him as well because of the fact that no one. Let's be honest here. Yes, there were some people who said Bournemouth would stay up, but let's be totally honest here. The majority, and no one can deny that. Even if you were one of the few that said Bournemouth would stay up, the majority of us said Bournemouth would go down. What Gary O'Neill did was absolutely phenomenal. But here's the thing. Bournemouth are a very ambitious club with their owners and the investment in January, and you know they want to rise up through the Premier League. They look at a club like Brentford, they'll look at a club like Brighton, they'll look at a club like, okay, a little bit different, but I suppose Aston Villa are a good example as well. And they will say, can Gary O'Neill take us to the next level? Like, very ambitious club, can Gary O'Neill take us to the next level? Well, here's the question you ask, right? Now, again, I want to say it's so harsh on Gary O'Neill, as you see on the back of the draw here, with Aston Villa 2-2, Burnley even 2-2, and right now we are third place, 3 points behind Spurs, halfway through the season, and 2 clear of Man City in 5th. For now, clinging on to a top 4 place. But sorry, going back to Gary O'Neill, here's the very tough question you have to ask yourself. There are 19 other clubs in the Premier League. Would any of those 19 clubs swap their manager for Gary O'Neill? And that is the really harsh but valid, tough question the Bournemouth board would have been asking themselves. Out of the 19 teams in the Premier League, who would swap their manager for Gary O'Neill right now? Possibly say Crystal Palace, maybe. Roy Hodgson, maybe. But the dude is one of the most experienced, if not he is the most experienced manager in the Premier League. So, probably not, I would say. If you look at the newly promoted teams, no, I don't think so. So, I mean, is there a team right now in the Premier League that would swap their manager for Gary O'Neill? I don't think so. And I think that's probably the question the Bournemouth board asked to themselves and said, well, if we want to take the next step up, I think they probably looked at Brighton. And I actually said this on Twitter yesterday. If you don't follow me on Twitter, by the way, it's @Docklanders. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I said this yesterday. Brighton and Hove Albion, and I mentioned this actually not too long ago, it's a great interview with Paul Barber, CEO, Chief Exec of Brighton. And if you haven't listened to it, it's on the High Performance Podcast. I'll try and remember to leave a link in the description, but you know me, I've got a memory of goldfish, but I'll try and remember. It's a great interview with Paul Barber. And he actually talks about that period when he replaced, when the board decided to replace Chris Hughton, who hadn't actually done a lot wrong with Brighton. I mean, I remember when he got sacked and I was thinking, oh, that's a bloody tough call. Really? He hadn't done a lot wrong. But they sacked him. They brought in Graham Potter and, you know, obviously he led them to a 9th place finish in the Premier League, a record high in club history. It was a really tough decision. And I'm sure a lot of people would have been thinking it's ungrateful, it's harsh. But in the end, you would say, and obviously hindsight's a wonderful thing, it ended up being the right call. That, to me, is kind of how I feel Bournemouth were looking at this right now and saying, listen, what Gary did last year was amazing. I think most people would say it was an overachievement. But is he going to help us take us to the next step? Can he be that manager? You know? Maybe, maybe not. And for the bloke they brought in, I mean, obviously with Rayo Vallecano, done a good job there. The replacement's an interesting one, I've got to be honest here. I'll be honest here, hands up. I actually thought it was going to be Graham Potter. I actually believed that. I did see a lot of people saying that Brendan Rodgers was going to do a U-turn. Like he was getting taxi driven up to Celtic, to Glasgow, and he was going to say to the cab driver, "Hang on a second, just turn around here, let's go back. We're going down south." But no, I didn't see that happen. I thought Brendan Rodgers for sure was going to go to Celtic, but I did think it was going to be Graham Potter, to be honest here. But for Areola, is that how you pronounce that? Areola. I think that's a really interesting call there, because he has not managed in the Premier League, obviously. Did great work with Rayo Vallecano, of course. There was a point where he was heavily linked to Leeds as well, not too long ago. But he's done a great job with Vallecano for the years there. He is a very young manager as well. I think he's in his late 30s or early 40s, so very, very young manager for all the years at Bilbao too, as a club player. Capped for Spain a few times, I believe, as well. He's got some good experience there. He's got experience that Gary O'Neill doesn't have. He has things that O'Neill doesn't have, but he also has things that Gary O'Neill has that he doesn't, if that makes sense, which is experience working in the Premier League with this team. It's a big call. It's a really big call, and I do feel sorry for Gary O'Neill. I really, really do, because again, like with Chris Hughton at Brighton, he hasn't really done anything wrong. In fact, he's done nothing wrong. He's done literally everything to the letter. He's done more and better than people would have expected. But this is the very nature of football. It is a business. And it's a great lesson for life as well. Sometimes you can do all the right things. You can do better than people expect. Yet it doesn't mean you're going to get all the accolades and all the rewards. You see, it's nice little Rabona assist here from Rutter in his FA Cup third round title against Crawley Town. How nice was that? You know I'm a sucker for a nice assist. How nice was that Rabona assist there? But even so, it's a big call. It's a really big call, and I see it from both ways. I really do. You know, for a club with such big ambition, I can see why they looked at Gary O'Neill and thought, yeah, I don't think anyone else in the league would swap their manager for ours. And if we want to take the next step, does O'Neill have the pedigree? Does he have the skill, I suppose? I don't know. It's a tough one. But I see it from both ways. I see it from both ways, and I think it could go either way. I think Areola could come in, and I know I'm probably not pronouncing that right. And by the way, you're talking about a nice assist there. You saw that Rabona assist with Rutter in the last game. This from Matt O'Reilly was class. Dink it up, and then first time volley through to Sesko. That was nice. That I see it from both ways. I really do. It could go either way. It really could. I feel for the guy. He was my manager of the year. He done a tremendous job, but again, the club with such big ambition. I see it both ways. I really, really do. And only time will tell whether it works out or not, or whether it backfires. And then again, there's no guarantee. Even if Gary Neville was to stay, he'll be able to replicate the season that Bournemouth had last year and keep in the Premier League. We know all about second season syndrome and how strong it can be for newly promoted sides. Remember Sheffield United? They had that amazing first year back in the Premier League, and then the second year they were bottled with only a few points on the board halfway through. And there was a genuine chance for a while they were going to be record breakers for lowest points total for a while. In the end, of course, they had a great end of season, to be fair, Sheffield United, in the year they went down. But even so, second season syndrome is a real thing. So you never know. I see it from both ways. I really do. You never know. But it certainly has drew some criticism online. And again, I understand that. I do see it from both ways. I really, really do. It's just very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting indeed. Anyway, I had a lot of chat about that. Following game, yeah, Sheffield United on the back of the win against Crawley Town went to Bramwell Lane for a nice little Yorkshire battle here. Won by 4-0 for the second game in a row. Benjamin Sesko bagging a hat-trick. This dude is a monster from corners, by the way. He's an absolute monster. First hat-trick of the season that's coming in. But from corners, the amount of goals I've scored with him from corners is unbelievable. But I'm not surprised. I said before, do you remember when I brought him in? I said this guy's like a B-Tech Haaland. He really is. He's 6'4". He's tall, he's strong. He's an aerial threat. He loves bicycle kicks, this guy. He's always going for bicycle kicks. But yeah, about a hat-trick there. Dan James got another one. And we managed to win the game by 4-0. So for Leeds, our good run continues. Question is, could we keep it going? Following game, Chelsea, they themselves, new manager for the new season, Mauricio Pochettino. A lot of talk about Pochettino. Would he be the right man for Chelsea? I said this before, like me and my best friend, my best friend's a Chelsea fan. We talked about this a lot. Like, I have to say, I think to be fair to Chelsea, with the summer they're looking at right now in terms of all the outgoings they're trying to facilitate. I've seen for Arsenal they might get 60 million for Kai Havertz. Can I just say, if they get 60 million, fair play. I have to say then fair play, because I feel Kai, he still has so much promise. He's still such a young man, lest we forget, but I don't think he'd ever be able to live up to the hype he had at Leverkusen at Chelsea now. I just don't think he'd be able to have that now. I feel like Kai is the kind of like the nearly man. Do you know what I mean? He can do a range of roles, but not good enough, if that makes sense. Do you know what I mean? It's like he's good as an 8, but he could be better. He's okay as a 9, but he still needs to be better. He can be a 10, be an 11, but just not quite as good. He's sort of like the nearly man, if that makes sense, Kai Havertz. And I'm interested to see if Mikel Arteta can get the best out of him at Arsenal. It's an interesting one. It's a very, very interesting one, but we shall see. I can see why Arteta wants him. I can see why Arteta thinks he can get the best out of him. But it's a very, very interesting one. If Chelsea can get around 60 million, I say take it. I say take it. They need an exodus. They've got too many players. They need to sell players. They're going to lose Mount to Manchester United. You know, they're going to lose RLC to Milan. I think for Kai, if they can get 60 mil, I'd take it. I'll take it. They've got to recoup some of the losses they've had in terms of expenditure, transfer expenditure, and also they need to get wages off the books. They send them to Arsenal for 60 mil. I'd take it. If I'm Chelsea, I'm taking that deal there. Obviously, we know they're going to lose a couple of players to Saudi Arabia as well. Edouard Mendy, I think that deal's basically guaranteed to be going through too. So, yeah, they got quite an interesting summer, Chelsea, as we lose there to the Blues. Kai did score in that game, funny enough, there in a 3-1 loss. We lose to the Blues there. They got an interesting summer, Chelsea. You know, Pochettino coming in. They're trying to thin the squad out a little bit as well. They've got a very interesting summer coming, Chelsea. And I'm excited for Chelsea. You know, I really, really am. It's a really interesting summer for so many clubs. And I'm excited to see how they'll get on under Pochettino. I like him. I do. I really do. But I think that Chelsea need to buy into the fact that he's going to take at least a couple years for them to get back to where they want to, as we beat Spurs in the FA Cup fourth round to reach the last 16 here. It's going to take a couple of years. You know, my best mate's a Chelsea fan, follows them over way. We talk about this a lot. Like, I don't see Chelsea having an instant return to the top four next year. I don't. It would be great if Pochettino can pull it off, but I think Mauricio needs time. You know, Thomas Tuchel with the new owners wasn't given enough time. Graham Potter obviously wasn't given enough time. Frank Lampard was not going to be given a job regardless. Let's be honest here. So Pochettino, he needs time, I feel. And I feel as though if Chelsea buy in to Poch is a really interesting manager. He's very emotional. He speaks to the players. His man management skills are really, really good. And I feel as though with what he did at Southampton and guiding Spurs to a CL final as well, with PSG, people will speak about his failures at PSG, but he was still able to win them a league and title. I know, obviously, the first year was it the first year they didn't win the league? Was that the year? I think when Lille won it, was that right? I think I might be wrong. I might be getting my dates wrong. But even so, I think Poch is a good manager, and I don't see why he can't succeed with Chelsea. But I do think it's going to take him a bit of time. I do feel as though they need to buy into the fact that, listen, like you can't just throw a load of money and just, you know, expect them to you know, go and, you know, win the league next year. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. Man City is still dominant. Pep is still there. They'll be trying to defend their treble. I know some people will say, you know, will they have the motivation? Of course they bloody will. Of course they will. There is no way Man City have a collapse next season. I know they're going to lose some players as well. That's the interesting thing. But they will replace and strengthen. I have no doubt, once again, Man City will be looking to defend their title. They've won it. Is it 4 of the last 5 or 5 of the last 6 years? There's no doubt about it. They'll be the outright favourites to win the title next year. Liverpool, I think, will bounce back. Manchester United, I think, will be in a better position as well next year. The second year under Eric Ten Hag to go for it as well. Arsenal, I don't think last year was a fluke. I think they'll also be in the conversation as well. You know, Spurs will have to bounce back. Whether they're able to be in a title race, hate to say it, I don't see it happening, but I think top 4 definitely. They'll be able to compete for top 4, I should say. And obviously Newcastle, you know, can they build on last year's success of qualifying in the Champions League? Chelsea, I'm probably forgetting someone there. Chelsea will need to accept that I think it will take at least 2 years. So next year for Chelsea is a really interesting one. As we make it through to the last 16 in the FA Cup once again, we've got Everton away at Goodison Park in that clash there, who of course in this save are now down in the Championship after last year's relegation. So for Poch, I feel as though he needs time. And I hope that Todd Bowley has learnt his lesson that you can't just throw a ton of money and bring in about 50 new players. I know I'm exaggerating a lot here. And expect the team to deliver. It's going to take time, you know. And I hope Poch gets it. If he gets a couple of years, I've got no doubt Chelsea can battle for titles once again. But next year for Chelsea, I would say with Chelsea, next year is all about stability, you know. Next year is about stability. You're not in Europe next year. There's no European football at the bridge. But listen, several years ago, you don't need to go too far, they were in the same situation. Do you remember that season? They had a terrible, terrible year. Mourinho got the sack. How did they bounce back the following year? They won the title. It could happen, but it might not. If that's not the case, stick with it, Todd. Stick with it. Stay out of the bloody dressing room and let Poch do his thing. And I think they'll be okay. But it needs patience. It needs time. It's one thing that modern managers don't have. And it's one of the reasons why I get disillusioned with the game sometimes. We all accept it's a results business. It always has been. It always will be. But managers, to me, don't get enough time. You know, they don't get enough time. And I feel as though for Poch coming in, he'll need the time. And I hope he gets it. I really do. Anyway, following game, I know I'm mixing gameplay and football chat today, but here we are, Bournemouth away. Areola's Bournemouth now, away on the south coast. Won the game by a goal to nil, scored early through Calvin. It's only his 3rd goal of the season, but as a DM to me, I've given him the armband this year. He's been pretty class, to be fair, as an anchor man. But still, won the game by a goal to nil, and that means 12 games to go. Look at how tight it is, right? This is one of the best title races I've had in years, by the way. 2 points separate the top 5. Chelsea are leading the way, but us, Man City, Liverpool and Spurs, as we're clinging on to 4th on goals right now, we're all tied on 55 points. Chelsea are 2 points clear at the top, but There's only 2 points separating 5. It's incredible. This is one of the best title races I've been involved in I'd say all the years I've been playing for you. This is class. This is so tense. I love it. So, following games, Nottingham Forest, heading into this game with Ellen Road here, aiming to keep ourselves in the top 4. I'm not really thinking too much about the title right now. I know in the last episode I was talking about Leicester. I was drawing the comparisons. I was saying, why can't we go and put off the Cinderella story and win the title ourselves, like the Foxes did under Ranieri? I'm not thinking about it much though. Even though we're only 2 points behind, I'm still thinking, can we keep Spurs at bay? Can we keep ourselves in the top 4? If we're going to do that, we've got to keep on winning. Following game, Forest won the game by 2-0. Dan James with the opener, and then 7 minutes later Benjamin Sesko going for the goal, and who gets another one round of the keeper as we continue our hunt for a Champions League place. And following game, Wednesday night, Everton, FA Cup last 16. I was thinking last year we got to the quarters, now they're a Championship side. I feel like I can rotate some of my squad. I'll still have some starters out there, but I feel like I can rotate some of my squad for this game here. Oh, the goal I conceded really annoyed me. 25 minutes to go. Trying to play out for the amount of Cody drama there, but it was one of those moments where you hold down the triangle button for the keeper to come out, but it registers as a player running to the ball to make the through ball instead. And Mauro Icardi says, cheers for that, Cody, slots it in, and the Argentine makes it 1-0. Everton in front, it's stoppage time. We're on the brink of a cup setting going out. Last chance, Somerville denied by Moises Ramirez. It's a corner. It's our final chance of the game. We're in the 5th minute of stoppage time. Lewis Cook floats it in. It's a scramble. Somerville keeps it alive, and Jorginho Rutter with the acrobatic flick levels it with the final kick of the 96th minute to send it to extra time. And how many times you heard me say this? Never give up on a game in FIFA. Why? Because stoppage time goes on longer. Never does stoppage time finish with inside the range of the minimum additional minutes allocated in FIFA. You know you've probably got an extra 60 seconds. We got an extra 4 minutes. And in the end, we capitalise. Rutter sends us to extra time with the final kick of the game. That's why you never give up on the game, regardless of the deficit, regardless of the minutes that have surpassed. And in extra time, we had the legs, we had the energy, we had the quality. 10 minutes into the extra time period, Brendan Harrison finds Rutter, and what a finish that is. When you talk about coolness personified, that goal, I actually preferred it to the leveller. Out comes the keeper, he says, sit down mate, I'm popping it into the bottom corner. The coolest of finishes past Moises, Ramirez and Rutter not only levels it, but he wins it. Final score at Goodison, 2-1. And Jorginho Rutter sends us into the quarterfinals for the 2nd straight year. That was class. That was absolutely class, that finish there. With the keeper coming out, as cool as you like, bottom corner. So, into the quarters for the 2nd year in a row. Last day, and Leeds will take on Leicester City. Leicester City, who are now a Premier League side. They're back in the Premier League in the save. They're mid-table right now. Don't forget, they came up with us in Season 1 and they're still in the top tier. They're mid-table right now, but we will be favourites to make it through to Wembley for the first time in the save. Right before the game, though, following match, Burnley away, Turf Moor, Vincent Kompany side, aiming to keep ourselves in the top 4 and possibly, you never know, go top as well. 16 minutes in, with a shot at silverware this year in both the league and the cup, and I never thought I'd say that pre-season. We need to keep on winning. We need to keep our form going. Dan James gives us the opener in the first half. Their 6th goal of the season for Dan James in 25 games. We lead by 1, 6 minutes to go. Holding on to a 1-goal lead, I'll be honest here, wasn't playing my best football in this game, wasn't getting many chances, only really had the one. Burnley looking for their leveller. Oh, Casper Dolberg. I'll see you later, he says to Mark Gay. Swivels like a ballerina, turns my centre half, and then smacks it in past Dean Henderson. What a goal from the Danish striker. Do you know what? Sometimes you've got to say fair play. Sometimes you've got to tip your hat to the AI and say fair play. Dolberg makes mincemeat out of me there and levels it. Burnley get a point. Big draw there in their bid to stay up, and it's 1-1. And we drop 2 points away at Turf Moor. But all would be forgiven if we win the following game and our final one today. Leicester, Ellen Road, FA Cup quarter-final. We want to make it to Wembley for the first time in a save. We were the favourites. We were playing like it. 30 minutes in, I had a starting 11 out there of all of my best players apart from Tyrick Mitchell in the Purvis Estupinan and that man up top. I could not drop him for Sesko, as good as Benjamin is, because he's been my star player in the cup. He's my top scorer. Wouldn't you know it, he scores the opening goal and he sets up the second. Jorginho Rutter. Yep, I cannot tell you how good he's been in limited game time for me in this save. I really, really like him. He scores the first, he sets up the second, and he sends us in to Wembley. For the first time in the save, we're going to Wembley. Pack your train ticket. We're going to the capital. We are off to Wembley for the FA Cup semi-finals. And I have a big decision to make, because will I either take on Chelsea, Arsenal, or Manchester United? And the question is, do I start Rutter? Or do I start Sesko? Benjamin's a monster. He's our B-Tech Haaland, but Rutter's been phenomenal. Well, I'll have to think about it. But in the semi, we will be taking on the team that knocked us out in the quarters last year, Arsenal. Arsenal in the semi-finals as Manchester United versus Chelsea in the other. First trip to Wembley, bring it on as our double dreams remain alive, as we're still only 2 points behind Spurs, but only 1 point clear of Man City. With 10 games to go, 3 points separate 5 teams. What a finale we are set for in one of my best title races ever. Guys, thanks for watching. Have a great day. Much love to you all. And I'll see you for the next episode of the Leeds United career mode, with the season coming to its climax very soon.